do men want?
Manifests itself in relationships, and you feel it in relationships, and they can be very powerful spiritually. And if that's what you need, that's what you should go for.
And she said, oh, I'm going to go do a sweat lodge this evening. And I begged her to take me along, and that was about 6 years ago.
Welcome to Speaking of Men. You're watching public access television from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm your host, Mike Rivas. And today, Speaking of Men is discussing men and violence. And we're fortunate to have in the studio with us Gerald Chavez of the Life Dance Martial Arts Company. He is the developer of Common Sense Self-Defense. He's an instructor and black belt in the Kaju Kimbo system of self-defense. He's a participant in Albuquerque's Memorial Hospital Challenge Program, past volunteer with the Albuquerque Rape Crisis Center. He won the Governor's Award as Volunteer of the Year. He is also starring in a current New Mexico production company's film on common sense self-defense, and he's also an author. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Michael.
You're having a book signing coming up shortly at a local store. You have a little book coming out on sexual assault, and I guess for women, isn't it?
Correct. It is for women, but it's also basically anybody is a potential victim, so to speak, or survivor of sexual assault. And so the book is geared towards anybody. Basically, the book signing is going to be at Salt of the Earth Bookstore, which is on Central Avenue across from UNM, on June the 6th, which is going to be at 2 o'clock. The book is it's a self-defense book, which is interesting. I brought a copy of it along. The book is in Spanish. This is my second book with a company out of Mexico City called Edimex, which which has their books distributed in Spain, South America, Central America, and Mexico. It's very interesting to be doing a book like this in Spanish-speaking countries, because even though rape is not discussed in this country very much, it's still kind of behind closed doors. In those countries, it's even less spoken of because a lot of cultural issues and things that come up with it. And it's a scary topic. This book is, as with the video, which we'll be talking about a little later, is, I call it Common Sense Defense. And it's an approach that I think basically anybody could take. There's a lot of awareness tactics involved in it, a lot of preventative tactics involved in it, and a lot of empowering tactics involved in it. And I'm real excited about the book signing. I'd like to invite a lot of people down to come down and see
What's
it.
the date on that again?
It's going to be June the 6th at Salt of the Earth Bookstore from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's across from the University of New Mexico.
I know where Salt of the Earth is. Good little bookstore, too.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff in
there. You brought a little clip from the For Your Information group.
Right, video group.
Which is a tremendous bunch of guys. They've produced some real good films here, just using local talent and doing a first-class job. You brought us a clip, and you want to set that up for us a little bit?
Sure. Let me tell a little about it. The Common Sense Defense system I've been developing. I started karate in 1967 with a man by the name of Mr. Sam Allred, who's a mentor of mine, who I admire a lot and respect, and we're in contact quite a bit still. And in learning the style of Kaju Kimbo, which is a real eclectic form, has been very, very valuable in learning how to deal with the situation of rape and sexual assault and abuse and even domestic violence. And another system I studied is a system known as Wing Chun Kung Fu, which was invented by a 94-pound nun 400 years ago. So I combined this one system invented by Professor Amparato, who was a male, and Wing Chun, which was invented by a nun, and put them together into now what I've developed as the common sense defense method. Basically, what you're going to see on the video is me discussing the initial formula, which is run, talk, defend. And as you will see in the clip, I basically try to get a little into the description. It's a 55-minute video, so you'll be catching maybe about a minute and a half. And within it, we do a lot of demonstration. A lot of my women students from my class are actually doing some defense techniques on some of my black belts and students who've volunteered to work with that.
Well, we have that tape ready to roll. Let's go to it.
If you have a question. To begin with, I'd like to talk about what I mean by common sense defense. You see, the best defense is prevention, being aware of your surroundings, using care and common sense to avoid an attack. But sometimes, no matter what we do, an attack is unavoidable. Defensive measures have to be taken. There are many styles of self-defense to choose from, but the common sense defense method shows you how to develop the inner preparation and strength you need to act with confidence prior to or during an assault. The method is based on a three-part strategy. First, when your gut reaction tells you something is wrong, run, leave, walk away as fast as you can. If you can't get away, talk. Say whatever you have to say. I'll give you some really good openers and ideas later on. If that doesn't work, the situation looks unavoidable, do not fight, defend. And I'll show you some basic defense moves later on during the program.
Gerald, you just said don't fight, defend. What's the difference?
Well, in fighting, two people punch away at each other until the physically stronger one wins. In every assault case, the attack will vary in size, strength, and motivation. Yet there's one thing you can be sure of. They wouldn't attack their potential victim if they thought the victim could defend themselves. And all attackers have vulnerable striking areas. But before we get to actual defense...
Welcome back to Speaking of Men. It's a good little clip.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We have, if someone was interested in that, I think we have an 800 number that'll come up on the screen here in just a minute or two, and you guys could call it if you wanted to. We're talking with Gerald Chavez, for those who might just be joining us. He's with the Life Dance Martial Arts group here, and is a black belt Kaju Kimbo Systems instructor. I had the good fortune of attending the 20th anniversary of the Women's Studies program at the University of New Mexico, and they did a little men's workshop, which I thought was grand of them. And happened to catch you there, and you did a little talk. You were saying there that most American men are, I guess, don't understand violence, and it affects a lot of our attitudes and are controlled by it. Would you talk about that a little bit?
I mean, you kind of put it in a nutshell there. They're controlled by it. We're told that we need to be strong. We're told that we are strong. It's very interesting. I'll get males into my karate class, and first off, every man thinks he knows how to make a fist, and most of the fists that men will form will probably break their wrist if they ever actually tried to use it. So what they have is we have these people who are running around saying, okay, I can be strong, I can take care of any situation I want to, and in reality we cannot. It's the idea of being my instructor gave a real good, Mr. Allred used to give a real good story. I'll kind of change the story a little to fit what I'm talking about now, but you have three men standing underneath a cliff. A big rock is about to fall on one of them. So what this man does is, this is the type of man who gets really angry, so when he gets mad, he punches a wall. Okay, that's how a lot of men deal with things, okay? Right. So this man, the rock is falling on this man, he punches the rock, and it's a 2-ton rock. Who wins? The rock wins. Okay, then you have the next guy. He's standing under the cliff. And this is the type of guy who grabs things, grabs children, grabs his wife, or grabs something and throws it across the room, because that's what he's been taught is the way to deal with a situation he cannot handle. So what happens, he tries to grab the rock out of midair, catch the rock, and teach it a lesson. Of course, he gets crushed. And where men need to get, and what I try to teach within martial arts, is you're standing under that cliff, and here comes a power that is greater than you. You step aside and let it go. And it meets its own end. You've controlled it, and you're still not hurt. And you're still within the situation and able to deal with it in a realistic manner. But you know, when it comes to violence, I mean, I was just in front of a restaurant the other day. I get out of my car. A man had knocked a man off of his bicycle with his car. So the man, being a good Samaritan type person, went over there to get the man. Apparently the man who was down started cussing at him. So the man who had hit him grabbed his bike, threw it to the side, goes up to the guy who was hit, punches him in the face. He gets up. The guy who went to help him now punches a man in the face who he had knocked out in his car, you know, from his bicycle. So it's looking like, I mean, it's not too, it's basically Neanderthal. And what we need to do is understand where we're coming from with that, is where that's not what we're here for. And that violence is not what we're here for. Yet it's such a vehicle because of our inability to feel, our inability to be sensitive, and our fear of our own strength, which we have no control of. So it's useless strength.
Well, you know, that's the whole thing that crosses my mind is that fear of if you don't confront it and get right in there with it nose to nose, there's something wrong with you.
Exactly.
You're a chicken or something.
Oh, exactly. And that's the burden we have to carry around as men. I mean, women are supposed to look like this thin model with the long legs and dress this particular way, and we're supposed to be this big, strong guy. And the reason I got into karate in the first place is I was going to a local high school here, and as a senior, I was under 100 pounds, basically, you know, worthless when it came to any physical activity, and I found martial arts. And my instructor, Mr. Allard, was very instrumental in pushing me along, but it was something I could do for me, and it also taught me that strength is only good, or it only surfaces when sensitivity increases. So in other words, if you're aware of what you have at that point physically, then you know where you can take off from. But there's all these guys, what are they doing? They're taking steroids to maximize their strength. Right. But they're not able to feel that strength or utilize it, which is why a 98-pound woman can throw a 300-pound man.
You said something that Mike and I talk about a lot, and it comes up in men's groups. You mentioned numbness. And I think that, could you expand on that a little bit? That, you know, what you're saying then is basically as men get numb and they're armored, not only physically but emotionally, so they can't feel.
Exactly. The term Shaolin, there was a kung fu, there was a movie series years ago called
Little
Kung
Grasshopper.
Fu. Right, exactly. And there's a term there known as Shaolin, which is a Shaolin priest. Right. That means young forest. And what that is, that's the basis of all martial arts. That's the basis of a lot of dance and so on and so forth. And what that means is you are in a constant state of acceptance. You're like the young tree is going to bend with the wind, but it's going to come back.
Right.
The old tree is going to try to be sturdy, is eventually going to get knocked over. And that stiffness will get you absolutely no place. What you need to be able to do is you need to be able to fluctuate between the yin and the yang. I mean, that's why you can get a good sword player can get a piece of bamboo and break a very thick piece of wood with that bamboo. And even though the bamboo appears to be weaker, it's flexible, but what it has, it can bounce between the hard and the soft and be aware, whereas men do not do that. They're staying within that stiffness, that numbness, that avoidance of their soft side. And if you don't have that soft side, even with a judo throw, you cannot. Judo means gentle way. But we see judo in movies, it's these big guys smashing each other. But the reality is, if you can't feel your attacker's strength, then the only thing you can feel is possibly his fist in your face, because you're not going to be aware of what's happening. And also, this sensitivity prevents most fights anyway. I mean, it prevents most of them. I've been in martial arts since 1967, and I've never had to fight. I run away. You know, I play in a rock and roll band, and I've been in situations that were pretty compromising, and I've been fortunate enough to talk my way out of them. I work in a mental hospital, and I work with patients who are escalating. And it's very important to be able to address that side of you, which is, I think, sensitivity and awareness.
We had a therapist named Jim Sims on talking about communications between men and women. He said one of the things that happens is that women know about emotion. Right. Men don't. And so a man and a woman sit down to talk. The woman starts getting into emotion. The first thing that happens is it scares the guy because he doesn't know anything about it, and so he immediately escalates and goes one up on her and becomes aggressive. Right. Rather than being able to deal in the world of emotion. Let me see if I remember this correctly. You said something about operating out of a sensitivity, and you have so can you talk about that a little bit? You know?
Sure.
You may have already, but maybe you can stretch that
I'd like to expound. As I mentioned at the anniversary lecture that I gave, I'm used to not sitting down when I talk, so this is a little unusual. I'm always demonstrating and doing things. Sure. But anyway, when it comes to the idea of sensitivity, just look at like the situation I gave a minute ago about the two guys out in the street I saw a couple days ago fighting. When we are pushed, we push back. Okay? When we are grabbed, we pull away. The idea is if this person is creating energy, what you want to do is you want to become part of that energy. So if a person is pushing me away, I'll go away. I won't push back. Because my desire, number one, is not to get hurt, not to hurt this person who is obviously already hurting emotionally, who is not very together in the first place. If he, number one, violates my space, puts his hand on me or puts his hand on somebody, a child or a woman or somebody, he's hurting already. He doesn't need to hurt physically. He's hurting enough emotionally. And it's very important for us to be able to see that. So if somebody has grabbed me and pulling me, I let them pull me. If they decide to stop at that point, much the better. If they pull me hard enough, what they're going to do is they would maybe pull themselves into an elbow strike of some sort. If I decided at that point in time, wait, I need to defend myself because this man is going to physically hurt me. And so once you tune into that aspect, once you tune into that power that's occurring, it's all yours. It's like anything else. I mean, just like Steve McKinney, a downhill speed skier who would, I think he used to go like 140 miles an hour. He said when he was going 140 miles an hour, that was the most calm he's ever felt in his life. Because you're immersed within that motion, you're immersed within that action. You see a good judo player throw somebody, it's such a calm kind of look to it, even though it's powerful, even though it can be deadly. But the reality is, once you harness that, your tendency to not want to use it even increases. Because you know what you could do to that person. And you start to feel for that person's hurt, which is what they're doing. They're hurting inside. Man's not going to punch somebody unless he's hurting inside.
Well, now, usually if I'm angry, my blood pressure goes up. Right. I have a real surge of adrenaline, and I'm fight or flight all the way down the line. And usually I'm not sure where to go with the situation. You know, I've been in one fight in the last 15 years, and we just ended up wailing on each other for a long time till we were numb and just finally had to just give it up. I went down and got some stitches in my chin and thought, you know, and the doctor said, God, you don't look like the kind of person that does this stuff. And I was saying, I didn't think I was, you know. And,
well, yeah, you were actually numb before the fight.
Yeah,
otherwise the fight would not have occurred.
Basically, yeah. You know, the thing one of the big things people talk about in recovery groups and men's groups things is boundaries again. And it sounds like part of, you want to talk about boundaries some?
Sure. That's one thing where men, once again, this gets back to the sensitivity issue. You know, I mean, men many times do not understand that. They go onto the office, the first thing to do is put their arm around somebody, especially if it's a woman, because that's just one way of them saying, I am in control. Boom, that's where the hand goes, or whatever. Right. And understanding that boundaries, once again, gets you back to the idea of increasing your sensitivity. Because if you're watching the person you're dealing with, be it a homeless person who's panhandling from you, be it a drunk person, be it a person who you just came across who was just assaulted, be it a person at work, anybody like that, when your sensitivity increases, when you approach the person, you start picking up body cues as to really what they're feeling and what they feel comfortable with. But we have that turned off. We go right in there and we're in control of the situation. What can I do for you there, little lady? Kind of stuff, and it doesn't do anything. I mean, a lot of us, I mean, I've seen that with counselors, I've seen that with police officers, I've seen that with doctors, with everybody. And once we understand the whole space issue and the whole sense, if we're feeling from our heart and feeling from our stomach, we're going to be able to approach those situations, not intimidate people, actually get to yes quicker or get to our goals quicker and in a more efficient manner and a less threatening manner. And that person, respect will increase, communication will increase, and those things are very, very important. But we are taught to fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. And that's the bottom line. I mean, we're taught, like you said a minute ago, one-upmanship, trying to get the next step up. If we're arguing with a woman, we're going to get into the state where we're going to somehow take control of the situation. What we've done is we've just lost total control of the situation and ourselves, and the goal will not be attained.
Probably the conversation with the woman is gone as well.
Oh, yes, everything is lost.
Which is the real loss.
Right.
You know, one of the things that we talk about a whole bunch on the program, and that you probably have come across in working with women and counseling them, is this inability of men to walk into a situation and see the woman as who she is, right, as a human being, as a person, and a completely separate, free, independent, you know, not an object, not something to be controlled, but a completely free person. Anything to say about that?
Well, it's very interesting because, once again, we're programmed via the media. We're programmed via our upbringing. Within culturally, for instance, being a Hispanic, there are certain things that we're required to do, whether it's the whole machismo trip or something. We're required to be this bizarre character.
Scripts.
Yes, exactly. And like Octavio Paz writes in The Labyrinth of Solitude, when the conquistadors rode into Mexico and started killing all the men and raping all the women and taking all the gold and killing all their leaders, all of a sudden it was like, wow, this guy on a horse, what's a horse? We'd never seen a horse before, and he's wearing this armor, and he has gold, and he has swords and weapons we've never seen. So it's the ultimate power. And that's basically what we're told we have to do or we have to be. Now we've replaced the horse with a Corvette. We've replaced the armor with a car phone and all this other stuff to somehow give us this sense of strength, which we don't need. You know, we don't come in with it, we don't leave with it. And it doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, I think that it's the whole idea of trying to, well, you know, talking about electronic media, one of the things I think that happens to us is we are bombarded with so much information and so much pressure, and there's so much outside agitation that it's real hard to get an emotional center and maintain it. And also, we're in a society that is just 100% hype and 100 miles an hour.
Sure.
And so what you obviously have to do, or what you are doing, is consciously setting some time aside to work with creating that center.
Exactly. I mean, well, look at the issue with the recent LA riots. I also work a lot with gang kids. And as you said, we're so immersed in it. We're so immersed in this whole concept of who all of these ad people are telling us we have to be, what we have to be like, what we have to wear. And it's basically the bazaar leading the blind is what it's amounting to.
The bazaar leading the blind, right.
And we need to try to get back to the roots. I mean, the whole, the men's movement as I know it and as I see it is doing a good thing because of the fact we are taking each other by the hand, going back to the mentor concept, to the awareness of being more aware of what women need and who they are and how we've been stepping on them inappropriately and on ourselves.
Oh yeah, if you heard, one of the things that that I believe that I've heard people say in the men's movement is that when you give a wound, you receive one.
Right.
When you hurt somebody, you, and I just almost always, in most physically violent situations, I feel this intense sorrow.
Oh, yes.
Afterwards, like, my God, you know, why couldn't things have been different? You know,
Right.
really underneath it all, this was just another guy like me. Why couldn't we have worked it
Right.
out? And no skills to do it and no permission to do
Right.
it, you know?
Oh, yeah, we're not allowed to. I mean, that's the whole thing with the gang thing. Look at the gang territorial thing, the turf thing. I mean, these people will die over that. I mean, young kids will kill each other over that fear of losing their strength they don't really have.
Do you think that, I've heard you're doing some work in that, and I've heard people in the men's movement say that they think that a lot of gang activity is young men who do not have older males in their lives trying to father themselves and mentor themselves and learn about being a man without the help of older people. Do you feel that's true?
I agree with that. And then on the other side of the same coin, we have 2- and 3-generation gang members in many cities in the United States, Los Angeles, Albuquerque, Chicago, El Paso, Denver. So many times their mentors are also gang members. And so it's real important to understand that in some cases they do have the mentor. But then most gang kids do come out of single-parent homes, many times run by a woman. And a woman can offer a lot of sensitivity, a lot of awareness, and a lot of empowerment. But sometimes the kid feels that they need that machismo or that strength that they get either via drugs, via a weapon, some way that the movies that they all see are telling them they need all the time. I mean, they're bombarded by the media like anybody else. And sometimes that's their only escape, and that's their only tool.
You know, some of the Dr. Kavanaugh down in South Broadway area has a program together where dads just come together with their youngsters once a week, and they work with kids. And you know, most of them grew up in situations where the fathering skills they're trying to develop are entirely different than you know, than the ones that they got.
The classical
you know,
ones, right?
you know, the distant, far removed. You got any, we're down to last couple of 3 minutes. Our producer doesn't like me to say that, but we are. And
I appreciate you saying that.
And basically, I wondered if you, if somebody wanted to, anything that you'd like to say that we haven't covered?
Well, I'd like to talk just real quickly, number one, about the book. I'd like people to come down to my book signing at Salt of the Earth on June the 6th at 2 o'clock, Salt of the Earth bookstore across from UNM. The video, I've worked with For Your Information Video Group and Video Enterprises, Susan and Warren Benjamin, two videographers from Albuquerque who are just phenomenal, doing some real good stuff on television right now, some really beautiful shows. The video, I'm real excited about it. It's a video that I'm hoping a survivor can sit at home and watch and not be threatened. It's not a karate video. I'm not breaking boards because we don't get attacked by boards. There's a lot of these things there that it's very realistic, it's very applicable, there's a lot of good information, and it's not threatening. At least I hope it's not threatening. And I'd like people to know that this video exists, and the toll-free number had appeared earlier. I guess they can contact me concerning that if they're interested in copies of the video. There's a lot of things happening out there, assertiveness courses by a lot of different people, and I really would like to reach out. I was sitting in a group of women today, there were 10 of them, and 8 of them had been raped. That does not follow national statistics, which is 1 out of 3.
Right.
You know, so I mean, that's scary. That's a real scary thought to know that exists, and men need to start taking control, which means letting go. Right. Control does not mean the power. Control means sometimes letting the power go, and that's where we'll get stronger from that.
You know, that's another wound. I've, in the 8 years I've spent trying to put my life together and begin to be aware, when you become aware of the number of women who were incested, molested, raped, and abused, and you walk into situations aware of it, it's scary, man, and it is a wound, and it is a wound that you and I have and that all men have. And, you know, I think that we need to get some kind of an honoring and recognition of that. And I think that we're struggling and efforting to do some change. Give me a phone number real quick we could call.
They can contact me at area code 505-897-1742 in Albuquerque.
Well, I want you to know I appreciate you coming on the program, spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Our guest today has been Gerald Chavez of Life Dance Martial Arts. This is Speaking of Men. We'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. We'd like you to be sure and give us any input, ideas on future programs. If you got something you'd like to say, get in touch. We'll get you on. So this is Mike Rivas and Gerald is telling you to stand if you can, run if you have to, but whatever happens, don't quit. Bye-bye.